welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate this. And we are going to get started and talk about the principles of servant leadership. So thanks for joining. I know this has been very popular. We've had quite a few people register, and that's great. So we were talking about using your chat feature. We're going to go over just a couple of features that we have in Zoom that we're going to be utilizing today. One of which is chat. The other one will be polls. So we have some polls throughout here, and I will be asking you some questions. So I hope that you will be open and be able to use your chat button as needed. And all you need to do, oops, let me back up there for a second. All you need to do to open chat, if you haven't done so already, is you'll find the chat button on the menu bar, which should be at the bottom of your screen, and you simply click that and it will open up. It doesn't open up automatically, so every time you do want to use chat, make sure you click on that icon. And then moving forward, just a few reminders here. Everybody should be muted right now, and if you happen to unmute yourself and have some background noise, please make sure to remute yourself just so we can focus on the topics here. If you haven't, please turn on your camera and smile. It's great to see people, especially in this time. And then I just encourage you to participate as much as you can. As I mentioned, as far as interactivity, we're going to have polls, chats. Some of you might have a reaction button, which is also down on the bottom of your menu, and it's a little, it looks like a little smiley face, and if you click on it, usually, and Jeannie is role modeling this for us, you can usually give us a thumbs up sign. And hopefully you all have that. Oh, yep, I see a couple more coming in. Fantastic. And then the other interactivity is just a little bit about stories and reflection and how that and how you can use servant leadership as you move forward. So I think that covers everything. So we're going to go ahead and I'll just introduce myself for those of you that don't know me. My name is Michele Padilla. I'm a director and senior leadership consultant with FCC Services. I've been with FCC now for just about 4 months, but I've been in the learning and development space for 20 years, which is really scary to say that out loud. So I'm going to say I started when I was about 12. That's probably not true, but anyway, I'm going to stick with that. Anyway, I have been involved with leadership, learning and development for a very long time. It is not only something that I'm very passionate about, but it is something that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm lucky enough to be able to make a living with it. So very excited to share some knowledge with you here, and then hopefully at some point in the future. And then I've also worked for a number of Fortune 500 companies over the years, most of which were based in Denver, Western Union, Aero Electronics, and I was a contractor for the United States Army for a while as well. And I got to facilitate at the Pentagon, which was really fun. So I also want to introduce to you Jeannie Klinkenbeard. She is our director and senior leadership consultant as well. We are peers, and Jeannie is going to be helping to moderate this webinar. So Jeannie, I'm going to kick it over to you for you to introduce yourself, please.
Hi everyone, greetings. I'll be a little bit behind the scenes today, and great to have a lot of you on the call. Michele and I are both speaking to you from Denver, Colorado at our respective homes, and looking forward to the rest of the hour. Thanks, Michele.
Thank you. All right. It looks like we've got a few more people joining here, so that's great. So we are going to go ahead and just jump into the learning objectives. You've taken time out of your day to be here with us, so what are you going to learn? Well, we're going to talk about servant leadership and illustrate the difference from the altruistic leadership style. And altruistic is really very authoritarian. It's generally something that would also be called traditional leadership styles. And as you may be aware, there are a lot of different leadership styles to choose from in which you may want to lead. However, I wanted to focus on one that seems to be the most common to really show the difference between the two. And then we are going to talk about learning and implementing the 10 principles of servant leadership as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, So one of the ways that I wanted to start this was talking about the best places to work. So some of these brands you will absolutely recognize. And I got this information from the Forbes 2019 Best Places to Work list. And I'll go ahead and start showing you some of the brands. Of course, we know Starbucks, Marriott, so hospitality, you would expect some servant leadership qualities there. Wegmans and REI Co-op. So I think Starbucks and Marriott are probably the most well-known of all of these brands. Wegmans, if you're not familiar, because I wasn't, I had to figure out who Wegmans is. They're a grocery store that is, from what I understand, primarily based in the Northeast down through the Mid-Atlantic states. So if you're from that neck of the woods, you probably know Wegmans, probably shop there. And then REI Co-op, if you are a big outdoors enthusiast, you have probably shopped at REI. We know there's several stores here in Denver because we are an outdoor mecca, that's for sure, in the great state of Colorado. So I'm going to move forward. I'm going to ask you the first question for chat. So again, open up chat. What do you think that, or why do you think that servant leadership can lead to good business results? So let's take a few minutes and take a look at what you've got here. Whoops. Builds trust. Absolutely true. What else? Engagement from employees. Yep. People feel valued. Communication. A team approach. Helps engage associates by letting them know that you care. Shared goals. Bonding. Better leverage for individual skills. Helps team members grow. Absolutely. So all of these are great answers. And I can't sit there and say that there's one answer that is better than the other. But the main thing is that with servant leadership, and when you look at those brands that we talked about, that I showed you earlier, Starbucks, Wegmans, REI, and Marriott, they have leadership that actually put their employees first. They're going to help lower their employee turnover for one thing, and then the employees are engaged, they're happy, the investment in people. I see that Aaron had written, and I think this is very true, so I'm going to add this into what I was going to say. Investment in people provides the highest ROI. It absolutely does. You're building team and you're taking a value and a commitment to the growth of your people. Absolutely true. Because if you've ever been around an organization that says employees are our biggest asset or our best asset, those are the companies that truly believe that that is the case. So great use of chat, everybody. So servant leadership. So we're looking at Robert Greenleaf and wondering who is he and what is his tie to servant leadership. So just to give you a little bit of background, so Mr. Greenleaf is really kind of considered the father of servant leadership because in 1970 he wrote what many consider a landmark essay on servant leadership. And based on these writings, the term servant leader or servant leadership really came from this particular essay. And that really catapulted the idea of servant leadership into the mainstream. Some interesting facts about Mr. Greenleaf is that he worked for AT&T for about 38, almost 40 years. He was really and truly responsible for the development and the management within AT&T. So he actually was the first employee to promote women and African-American employees into a non-menial role. He was also responsible for creating the first corporate assessment center, and then also bringing external speakers that are experts in their fields to AT&T. So he was really groundbreaking in his career. And then when he moved on from AT&T, he took that knowledge and started servant leadership. And Mr. Greenleaf passed away in 1990, but from his work, there have been other people that have really decided to scale his thought leadership about servant leadership and apply it to today's standards. So just to give you a background on servant leadership, obviously some of you know a little bit more about this than others, but servant leaders have a really strong desire to serve first and foremost. And think about the people that are working in service industry jobs. They really and truly love what they do. And in my past, I've worked in retail mostly, and I loved it for a lot of reasons, because I have that desire to serve first and foremost. However, there was growth that I wanted to have and further education where I'd be able to put that education to use and do what I do now. So that's one of the reasons I left retail, for example, but I still have a strong tie to that service. Servant leaders are really about influencing others rather than controlling others, and that's part of that altruistic leadership style that we're going to look into in a few minutes. Servant leaders are always going to put their needs, the growth, and development of their people first, and they listen. And listening is one of the key elements or the key principles of servant leadership. So listening more instead of being the loudest voice in the room or having that fist pounding on the desk and say, this is how it's going to be. A servant leader is less likely to do that. And the leader who is servant will always put his or herself last. So we're going to talk a little bit here about altruistic leadership and servant leadership. And so I use the simple diagram of a triangle. So with altruistic leadership, you're going to have your leader at the top because the leader is the most important. And this is a person where they're going to go into their office of their vice president or an executive and say, I did this, it's all me. I did it, I drove the team. The results are always going to be in the middle, but the team is going to come last. So the altruistic leader, usually very little coaching on how to do something. It's just do it. I used to work with a boss who would say, smile and dial. I'm like, well, I can smile and dial, but I need a little more help than that. But I didn't get that help. So I didn't necessarily flourish in a prior role. So not having that coaching is really detrimental to team development. One of the reasons that you probably know that employees will leave companies is because they will not be happy with their boss. You know, people leave their managers, they don't necessarily leave a company. So that's one of the ways that altruistic leadership is going to differ from servant leadership. In servant leadership, we talked already about the team. The team is going to come first, followed by the results, and then the leader comes last. The team is going to be the person or the group of people that are getting the results first, and then the leader is going to go into their boss's office and say, my team did it. Here's how I made my team do it. I coached them, I developed them, I created trust, I value them, I opened the door for collaboration and new ideas and for people to be helpful. We grew as a group, as a community. So there's a big difference between those, how you achieve those results. So go ahead and open up your chat button again. And I would love for you to answer the question that we have up here on the screen. Why do results come after team in the servant leadership triangle? Don't be shy. If you take care of the team, they will take care of the results. Yes, results are a product of an engaged team. If you take care of employees, they'll take care of customers. Very true. I think I like what Lori says here, because the team is protected beyond the outcome. People are more important than the process. And Ray says, positive results will never maximize if the team is not functioning well. Absolutely. Chad says, if your people come first, a natural byproduct of an appreciated employee is results. Absolutely true. Gina, engaged and an empowered team will achieve results. Stephen says the team produces the results, and the focus on the team will produce the results. Absolutely true. Very good. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward. I think you guys have got the hang of that. So I have a poll question for you. This is our first poll. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll, and my question to you is, have you ever left a job because of the relationship with your manager? So please take your time and vote. I'm going to leave the poll open for about 20 more seconds. So if you haven't voted yet, please go ahead and do so. Okay, so we've got about 75% of the people on the call have voted. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and I'm going to share the results with you. So as I had anticipated, 60% of people said yes, I have left my job because of a manager, and 40 of you have said no, so that wasn't a reason that you left. So my thought was that we would definitely see more people that have left. And go ahead and open your chat button. I have a quick question. I just want to know, what are the reasons that you left? And I'm not looking for he was a jerk or she lied or anything, but give me like micromanager. What were the behaviors that you saw? Someone didn't listen, they didn't coach, you didn't feel supported, lack of support, micromanager, did not have trust, lack of value, lack of respect. Yep, absolutely. So everything that you all are writing in here is, Lisa, sorry, I got to stop myself here. Lisa says, wanted more sales results, but no direction, training, and support. Ding, 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 winner, winner, chicken dinner. That is it, Lisa, right? That's exactly why people leave. There's also reasons like changing priorities, integrity. Yep. All right. So a lot of reasons people can leave, but some of those reasons, what we find are pretty consistent. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my results. Thank you for participating. All right, so let's jump in and talk about those 10 principles of servant leadership. So we're going to start. I have just a short video. It's just a portion of one that I pulled off of YouTube that I think will give you a really good broad base or broad stroke of servant leadership. So this should work. Please keep in mind technology is imperfect, but I tested it, so I do expect this to work. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play. Oops. Okay, so I realized I did get a chat that said some people couldn't hear it, so I apologize. The good news is that was a motion graphic that had a lot of language in there. So you could see what was being drawn and you could see the words, and those were the 9 key principles. And I know that my objective said 10 key principles, so there is a little bit of a difference there, but you're gonna see all 10. All right, so apologies again for anyone that wasn't able to hear that, but you could at least see it visually, so that is a good thing. All right, so we're going to jump into the first three principles of servant leadership. So really the first one, listening. So effectively listening. How many of you can agree that there is a difference between listening and hearing, right? Listening is going to have you actually have a two-way conversation with the person that you're speaking to and take those words to heart and perhaps action. Their actionable items can result from listening, whether you're hearing, which is usually through one ear and out the other, right? So listening really helps to drive how an employee feels because they're going to feel valued and they're going to feel trusted. With empathy, let's take a look at principle 2, empathy. And that's something that we all have, I think, a lot of, especially in this day and age, but empathy. So when you are working with different people, let's make the assumption that someone has a sick spouse or a sick child. And maybe that's something that you cannot relate to. So an altruistic leader is going to be like, got a sick kid. I don't know what to tell you. You just need to do your work. You need to find a way to get it done, right? That's an altruistic leader. That's your traditional leadership. Someone that is definitely not servant or service minded. So the servant leader is going to have a different experience where they're going to say, I understand what you're going through, and I will help to support you. Tell me what you need from me to make you successful, and we'll figure it out. Or it's a matter of involving the whole team together to rally around an individual that needs some empathy and needs some support and some help in order for them to be successful in their job. Looking at the third principle, healing. So healing is one of those where perhaps there's a trauma. If you are a part of a team, an intact team, and let's say there could be an issue with somebody suddenly losing or leaving the team rather, or perhaps there's a reduction in force. There could be a number of different things that happen that could promote this healing. But again, I think the healing and empathy are really hand in glove, because if you have a hole in your team, someone leaves, whatever the situation may be, it's going to be up to your manager, your servant leader, to really figure out how do we heal the team as a whole. Yes, we lost an individual person. They were great. They did a lot for this team and for this organization. Maybe it's a retirement. So how are you going to put that team back together? Think about it like Humpty Dumpty. He fell off the wall. All the king's horses and all the king's men, they tried to put him back together, right? So they tried to heal him. So that's a way to think about a servant leader healing. And I don't know that as workers, when we run into those types of situations, when we've been a part of them, if we really stop to think and say, how is my manager going to heal this team? But it is something to think about. So as we've gone over these first three principles, now I want to hear from you. Go ahead and open up your chat button and tell us, where have you seen one of these three principles in action? Is it on your current team? Is it a past team? And which principle do you see? Okay, got a couple chats coming through. I'm seeing listening, empathy. Yep, work from home changes, absolutely. Managing kids and work from home. Healing, and especially now in this day and age, this is going to be a healing process for all of us. Absolutely. Mark says all of these with the current team. Yep. So right now in this day and age, what I'm seeing come in more than anything is that we need all three of these principles for our teams. Absolutely true.
Michele, this is Jeannie. Can I add one that I see from Beth?
Please.
She gives a really specific example of having check-in meetings that allow regular listening and communication. And I'm a huge proponent of having one-on-ones with your team members. And so Beth, thank you for sharing that such a specific example of what a leader can do to show those principles of servant leadership, especially the listening. So having those regular, consistent check-in one-on-one meetings or the whole team meetings.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Good catch, Jeannie. Thank you. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the next set of principles. Awareness. This is probably, for me, the one that stands out the most as far as servant leadership. And that's not to say it's the most important at all. Everybody is going to have one or two that might stand out the most. But to me, it's self-awareness. And having an awareness of others is key, in my opinion, to be a really good servant leader. Having self-awareness of how you might be perceived by your team and by other people within your organization, but then also having the awareness and understanding of your own team members. So if someone that you're working with or you yourself may not be the best person that is either self-aware or aware of others within your team, there are a lot of great tools out there that can help you with that. And one of a couple that I instantly thought of when I saw this was there's DISC, there's Predictive Index, there's Strengths Finders, of course, Myers-Briggs, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different tools out there that if you're not naturally good at self-awareness or awareness of your team, that these tools will help you understand who is in your team and how they think and how they do their jobs. So for example, I know on my DISC profile, I'm an influencer, and then I also am an S, so I like stability. But someone else within my team is a high D, so they're dominant. So I understand because now I'm more aware of how they may interact with me. It's not to be offensive at all. It's just that they're going to cut through the stuff and get right to the point. That is part of how they are. And now that I know that, I'm aware of it, and that helps me communicate better. So thinking of those types of tools will really help your servant leader become more aware. And also always taking a look in that mirror and seeing what do you reflect back. Being open to feedback will help increase your self-awareness as well, because again, you don't want to be perceived as one way and then have that feedback of, oh, you're a little standoffish, you're unapproachable, or whatever it might be. You sound like you have so much fun at work. Can you ever be serious? Anything like that is going to help give you that self-awareness so that you can change that perception of yourself and make sure that you're always aware of what your team, how they think and what they do and how they feel valued as well. So awareness is really a key thing to really be very holistic in terms of servant leadership. So let's move on and talk about principle 5. So we're halfway there because I said there were 10, and we're doing great on time, by the way, in case anyone was wondering. So persuasion and also I think cooperation is also a really great element of servant leadership. If we think about an altruistic leader, remember that they are usually the loudest voice in the room. They are the one that won't delegate authority. They're going to take everything in on their own. I got this. They're not going to persuade anybody. It's going to be their way as an altruistic leader or the highway. And we're seeing that a lot lately, even if you're not an expert in something specific. So a servant leader is going to be the opposite. They're going to work with you and persuade you to see their point of view, or persuade the team to see something new, or to figure out a way forward. So that power of persuasion is going to be key for the servant leader. An altruistic leader is going to also be very much into coercing the team. It's not going to be a team focus. It's going to be all about them as a leader with persuasion. And then let's take a look at principle 6 with conceptualization. What's great about this is conceptualization as a servant leader gives you the chance to look at the big picture, that 30,000 foot picture. And at the same time, that servant leader shouldn't be getting bogged down in the day-to-day operations or the day-to-day tasks. They have the ability to balance the long-term goals with their short-term goals. And it's not to say that the devil isn't in the details. That servant leader has to have that ability to look at the details, but then also look at that bigger picture as well. So this is someone that may not easily conceptualize, or someone that isn't always good with details, but they have to somehow find a nice balance. I'm the first to say that I have a lot of big ideas. I think very conceptually, but sometimes, and this goes to principle number 4, my self-awareness to say, oh, hold on, reverse it. I got to bring myself back down and think about how my idea is going to affect the long term, and what am I doing today that can get me to what I want to do. So there you go. You've got conceptualization, but then I'm pulling in that self-awareness as well. And then once I figure out what my big idea is, now I'm going to go to principle 5 and I'm going to persuade my boss that I have a great idea and here's how it's going to work. So you get to see all of these little principles individually, but then you also have the opportunity to see how they all work together too. So we're going to hear from you. So again, in chat, so we talked about awareness, persuasion, and conceptualization. So now open your chat buttons and tell me, where have you seen these principles in action? So under your current leadership, okay, great. You're seeing all 3 of those. My current team, they're the best. Well, isn't that nice? That is always great to hear when you know that you are working with a great team. Beth says her CEO during this pandemic is exhibiting all 3 of those. I would agree with that. I think my CEO certainly is doing that too. Awareness, persuasion, conceptualizing. And Ray says all 3 in his current team. Great. How about a few more?
Michele, this is Jeannie. If any of you can think of a specific example of like a behavior that you see demonstrate one of these 3 principles, that's always really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Specific behaviors. John says at this moment with changes, his team adapts. Absolutely. Mark says awareness, understanding that we do not all think and react the same way. Absolutely true. Yeah, I think the awareness is a big piece, especially when you think about when our shelter at home directives are lifted from various states. How is it going to feel? Some people might be gung-ho right back into the office and try to get back to normal. Other people might be a little bit more apprehensive. So does your leader recognize that? Is that awareness that they're showing? And how are they showing it? Is it through emails or bi-weekly or bi-monthly calls with your team or with your whole organization? And Ray says his meetings are inclusive, never directed. We all get input and decisions are made on the consensus. Very true. And I love, Sean says, some things I will have to add to my toolbox. Yay, that's exactly what I'm looking for. These are tools to help you become better leaders. So I am happy to hear that. Thank you, Sean. Okay, so we're gonna finish up the principles here. Okay, so we're going to start with principle 7, foresight. So foresight is similar to conceptualization, and this is really kind of thinking about cause and effect. So we want a leader that's going to be able to look, take lessons learned from a past situation and the impact that it had, and how the present is affected, and then how is the situation going to affect the future. So it's obviously looking forward, but then at the same time, you've got to have some balance of looking behind in that hindsight and balancing the two. So that's where it's very similar to conceptualization. You've got to balance long-term, short-term. And stewardship, principle number 8. So stewardship's a great one. So this is really the ultimate good citizen. So all executives should be thinking about how an organization can better a community or give back to communities. This is, what might this look like? So maybe this is a day where your organization has a community service day and all of you go collect trash on the side of the road or something, whatever it might be. You work with different organizations. So stewardship is actually helping to build that community. And if this isn't done at the executive level down, maybe it's something within your team that you can do. And it doesn't have to be always outside of your organization in those communities. It can be communities within your organization. So what are you doing here? For example, I'll give you an example that's something that FCC does. We have ambassadors. And so our ambassadors will create, when we were prior to this pandemic, we have healthy snack days, or we have days where everybody meets at a certain time once a week to go for a quick 30-minute walk. Creating something where you have that kind of community and camaraderie is stewardship. So it can be both within your organization or outside of your organization. And stewardship really comes right into principle 9, building community. So that building of community is developing communities within your organization. So for example, how do you blend generations within the workplace? And you want to blend those generations so that you have that stronger team and community, so that you're not really working like you were in silos. I know many of us have worked in organizations, whether it's current or it's in the past, where everything is siloed and it's so hard to get things done, and it's so hard to reach across those silos to build that community. So as much as you can bring those silos down and work holistically, that's part of building that community within your organization. What you really want to have is a community of one. And then the last principle, commitment to growth of people. This really comes from us as managers, whether you're an executive level, mid-level, or even someone that's an individual contributor that aspires to be a manager at some point. You've got to have a commitment to the growth of your people, to believing in them and what they can do, and helping them grow their skills through external learning opportunities like this, to different types of exposure to different types of jobs within your organization. Because maybe someone's like, I'm kind of curious what it's like to be in the loan department or compliance, for example. And if you can create an opportunity for someone to grow and learn and understand more about your organization and build that bench strength within your organization, that's going to make you more competitive and a better group as an organization. So as a whole, you want to build that strength, hire from within, promote from within. And that's not to say you can't go outside. You absolutely should. There's amazing talent out there too, but start from within your organization. Grow it organically. All right, so I'm going to launch another poll, and I want to know of the 10 that we have worked on right now. Let's see, get my second poll up for you all. So which servant leadership principle do you practice today? And you can choose more than one. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll. And I'm seeing some come in. Great. And keep in mind, these are the ones that you're practicing today. About 50% of you are voting, so that's great. So keep it up. I'd love to get that number higher. I'm gonna leave the poll open for another about 20 seconds roughly. We're about 70% of people have voted, so if you haven't voted in the poll, please do. Okay, last call, 10 seconds. I'm gonna close the poll. All right. Okay, so I'm going to share the results with everybody. All right, so it looks like listening is our winner. 72% of you say that this is a principle that you practice today, every day, followed by empathy, which I'm loving, 68%. On down, healing, persuasion, awareness, a good 67% there. Conceptualization scored a little lower, 22%, and that's okay. Because you know what, not everybody is going to be great at all of these principles, but if you know that conceptualization, since only 22% of you roughly are doing that today, then this is something that you can learn more about and think about how you can implement it tomorrow or later today. Great. All right. Oh, I'm not done. I've got one more poll for you. So what I want to know today is which servant leadership principles will you practice tomorrow? So we already know what you're doing now, but what about tomorrow? I'm going to launch that poll. So this is something that, again, you can choose more than one, and this is what do you need to improve on? What are you going to start practicing tomorrow? Got about half of everyone that's voted, so I'm going to keep going here, leave the poll open again for a little bit longer. Okay, we're at about 70%. Last call. I'm going to close this out in about 15 seconds. So if you haven't voted, please do. Okay. We're going to end that poll and we're going to share the results. So the winner is awareness. So that's what everyone's going to start practicing ASAP. We're going to see that tomorrow. Being more self-awareness, using the tools that you can get your hands on to help you understand your team and yourself as well. That's great. So then what else are we looking at here? Looks like listening and empathy. If you're not doing as good of a job as you could be, that's something that you're going to work on. Healing, we're going to need a lot of that. Conceptualization, we talked about that earlier, so that's good to see. We're going to see an increase in that. And then also down here, we see the commitment to the growth of the people. So committing to grow your individuals, your team. Excellent. Great job, everyone. And Jeannie, I was going to ask, is there anything, did you see anything pop up in the chat?
There's a couple of comments that the participants could only check one of the 10 principles. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you. Sorry about that. Apologize. But it looks like mentoring teammates is very important. So I think that is valuable. And as leaders, John says it's important that we deliberately groom and mentor our teammates. Absolutely. Very true. Very true. So on this slide, I was looking at finding some leaders and different CEOs of companies that were really good servant leaders. And so I found a few. I got this list off of the magazine Inc. So it's similar to Forbes. It's published a list of the world's top 10 CEOs who lead differently. And what I liked about this is because as I read through this top 10 list, what I found is that there are companies that I may not have heard of, some of which I had, some I had not, but these are not your run-of-the-mill household name CEOs, the ones from Microsoft, the ones from Google, the ones from Apple. And that's what I liked about this. So when you, I'll give you a little background. So Cheryl, I do not know how to say her name, Cheryl Bachelder or Bachelor. So apologize about that, but she is known for a quote that says, and by the way, I should mention, she was the #1 CEO on this list, and she is the CEO of Louisiana, or Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. And she is currently, I believe, outgoing. She is exiting. I think Popeye's was recently purchased by another organization. But she had an amazing time as a CEO and really did a lot for that organization. But her quote is, "I must know you to grow you." And the fact that she is a CEO saying, hey, I've got to know who you are, know what you're about, let me care about you in order to help you grow, I think was a really key element for her success. So I really liked her quote a lot. And then there is a gentleman by the name of Ari Weinswig, and his quote is, "Beliefs underlie every single thing that we do, both individually and organizationally. Beliefs are like the root system of our lives." And this man is the founder of a company called Zingerman's Community of Business, and they started out as a deli in, I believe, Michigan, and has grown to a conglomerate of 10 different businesses under that umbrella. And then Gary Ridge, the third quote, he is the CEO of the WD-40 company. And I was like, WD-40? Don't we all have a can of that in our garage? Stop the squeaky doors and things like that. So I thought WD-40, just a little side note, I thought WD-40 was part of a different organization, but they are in fact their own company, which I thought was pretty cool. But anyway, he says, leadership is about learning and teaching. We have no mistakes here. We have learning moments. So I think Gary Ridge must have a background in learning and development, because that is what we say. That is our belief system, is that everything is a level playing ground. We're talking about having learning moments. There's not always a right or wrong answer. It is about learning and growing. And if you can adopt this attitude as a servant leader, that is a great thing, because you're going to instill value and trust in your team, and that's going to be a very, very important part of that relationship within your team. It's not about making mistakes, it's about learning and growing. And one of the last CEOs that I have here is Brittany Merrill Underwood, and she is the CEO of Acola Jewelry, and it is a luxury brand that's sold through Neiman Marcus. What I liked about her is that she is practicing conscious capitalism to transform the lives of impoverished women and families. So a lot of her revenue is given to locations where they can build wells for clean water and things like that. So again, she's really exemplifying the community, right? Building that community. So our final chat question here is, what principles do you think that these CEOs embody? What are some of the thoughts? So we know community is one of them. Empathy is definitely an additional one. Awareness, absolutely true. Commitment to the growth of people. Stewardship, absolutely. Foresight, listening, yes. Absolutely. Very true. Excellent. Okay. So we are just about at time. And I just want to do a quick learning recap here. So we talked about servant leadership and what the difference is from that altruistic leadership style. We've talked about implementing the 10 principles of servant leadership. And with over 100 people on this, it's hard to answer all the questions that you might have, but I do want to open the floor to see if there are a couple questions. So go ahead and write something in chat if you have a question, and we'll do our best to answer it before we close out the webinar. And if you don't have any questions, that's okay too. You can always email myself or Jeannie with questions if you think of them later. But Naomi does have one. She says, are there any tools you would recommend to help us improve on these skills? So tools, I would say, you know, there's a couple good websites you could go to. One is Servant Leadership. And I think that would help. You know, you can read some books, some case studies there are out there. And there's a lot of information on servant leadership. The challenge with doing it in an hour seminar is to really try to hit the high points. But I would definitely say look and do some reading. If you have access to tools like DISC, that would help. Get to know your team and make yourself more aware as well. Jeannie, do you have any additional thoughts on that?
I would say focus on one of the principles that you mentioned. And I think an assessment is a great tool to give you some awareness. And then again, focusing on one principle, maybe getting a mentor and asking another leader that you really admire what they do in specific behaviors.
Great suggestions, absolutely true. Good. Great, thanks for that question, Naomi. Okay, Jeannie, do you want to take this slide?
Sure. Yeah, we leave you with a final quote by the infamous Oprah Winfrey. Leadership is about empathy. It is about having the ability to relate to and connect with people for the purpose of inspiring and empowering their lives. That's one beautiful ability of a good leader, is to empower and inspire others. So a great final thought.
Great, thank you. Thanks for reading that. And I hope everybody does take this quote to heart, especially when it comes to servant leadership. So in closing, I just want to share with you just a few more leadership lessons that we have coming up if you're able to make it. So we have Jeannie, who is going to facilitate Prioritize Your Day, Prioritize Your Life. You've got the dates here. And then she is also facilitating effective and interactive remote meetings. She already did this one, so if you missed it the first time, you definitely want to join us again on April 28th. And then I will be doing the Art of Delegation on May 6th. Make sure that you're signed up for our newsletter, because we do send out registration links that way, and then also through our social media and digital channels, and also on our website as well. So we look forward to seeing you for these next 3 webinars and some more that are coming your way. So again, I want to say thank you, everybody, and thank you to Jeannie for helping me moderate and facilitate this program. Glad to have you here. I look forward to meeting many of you within the Farm Credit System. If at any time you guys have questions, please feel free to reach out. My email is here. Please note, Michele is with one L. If you put two L's in it, I won't get the email, so just one L. And thank you again. It was great having you all here, and I appreciate everybody's time. Have a great rest of your week and stay healthy.